Welcome to the show that focuses on African matters. It's great to have you with us. This week on the show, we move back to our focus on agriculture, and in particular, we're looking at scaling up productivity and prosperity in agriculture. We get your views on the issues, and as always, we have Africa's top 10. You're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues. I'm Julie Gichuru. Agriculture continues to be a critical issue in Africa's development, and on the show this week we focus on scaling up productivity and prosperity in agriculture across the continent.
On the panel this week, DrJames Mwangi, CEO and Managing Director of Equity Bank Limited, Kenya. Dr. Kanayo Nwanze, President of the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD. Geoffrey Kirenga, CEO of the Southern Agricultural Growth Corridor of Tanzania, SAGCOT. Dr. Lindiwe Sibanda, CEO of Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources Policy Analysis Network. Honorable Beda Machar Deng, South Sudan's National Minister of Agriculture. Khalid Bomba, CEO of the Ethiopian Agricultural Transformation Agency. Jørgen Halstead served as the CEO and President of Yara International until October 2014.
The African Union, in its July 2014 Malabo Declaration, renewed its commitment to accelerating agricultural growth and broadly sharing the benefits across African society. Africa's leaders pledged over the next 10 years to double food productivity, cut poverty rates in half, and move towards eliminating child malnutrition. The African Green Revolution Forum, held at the African Union in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, saw over 1,000 leaders from various sectors meet in the first multi-stakeholder gathering in response to the Malabo Declaration. On the show this week, we feature a panel session on scaling up productivity and prosperity in agriculture. This initiative is also supported by the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, which works to achieve a food-secure and prosperous Africa through the promotion of rapid, sustainable agricultural growth based on smallholder farmers. I'm going to start with countries that seem to be powering ahead to give us examples of what they have been doing to make a change and what has been working. And so, Khalid, let me start with you and the Ethiopian story. We see a lot of growth in Ethiopia when it comes to agriculture. How have you effected the growth on the ground? And what are the challenges still in scaling up?
Thank you. So I think the major contributions to the gains that Ethiopia has made is first and foremost the political will of the government of Ethiopia to prioritize the agricultural sector. Very similar to many African countries, agriculture is the backbone, the core of the economy. Over 45% of the GDP, but more importantly, 85% of employment comes from the agricultural sector. 95% of agricultural production in Ethiopia comes from smallholder farmers. So the focus of the government, I think, has been the primary driver of the development in Ethiopia. And I'd just highlight maybe three key issues that have contributed to that. First is the right policy and enabling environment that creates the opportunity for smallholder farmers to invest, the private sector to invest, and also other partners, the development partners, private sector also to engage. The second is also a sense of prioritization within the sector itself. And there are many, many things that need to be done. And almost the list is too long to do simultaneously well across the board. So there's a sense of prioritization that we have to make. And that's another thing that the government has done. And then finally, I think it is the sense of partnership. Recognizing that it's not one sector or one type of organization that drives development. It is both the public sector, the private sector, and civil society working together that can contribute to make change happen.
Thank you for that. Coming to you, Geoffrey Kirenga, looking at Tanzania, again, hailed as really doing well in terms of agricultural growth and productivity. But tell us, when it comes to the commercialization that has been discussed, we're talking farm to fork. Tell us about the process in Tanzania, the successes, but also the challenges as well.
In Tanzania, the story is not very different from what has happened in Ethiopia and other countries that are doing well in agriculture in Africa. But there are certain issues which are crucial in that process. First of all is the leadership, and also the need for partnership between the public and private sector. These are central. But also, it is very, very important in the policy processes to prioritize and agree on the key issues. And in Tanzania, we have agreed that we will put central in our endeavor to develop agriculture 3 issues. 1, food security and production of sufficient and nutritious food for our people is central. Second, that process must be inclusive. That means the businesses that will be investing in agriculture, either local or international, must make room and include the people that we have in the country. 80% of our people depend on agriculture. And therefore, they must be part and parcel of that process. We don't want to create islands of wealth in the sea of poverty. And thirdly, it's very, very important to make sure that the resources that we have for agricultural production are used in a sustainable way. That means that the environment, that is the soil, the water, the flora and fauna that we found in our region in Tanzania are conserved for current production and services of the current generations and also for the generations to come. Those 3 issues are central to our activities and agricultural development in Tanzania.
We know that in Africa today there are millions, I think the number is 200 million, who are malnourished, and 5 million apparently dying annually. So even as we talk about scaling up productivity and prosperity, first we must scale up. There's no 2 ways about it. But let's come now to you, James, and of course in the banking sector, but also let's expand your purview a little bit and talk about the fact that you are also engaged in education and youth and really trying to empower young people. So from your perspective, when it comes to productivity and prosperity, what are your comments on how Africa can succeed?
Thank you very much. When it comes to scaling up productivity and prosperity in agriculture, we must really remember that agriculture is driven by 3 factors of production. There is land itself, there is labor, and there is capital that will then modernize and get agriculture moving. And when you look at these factors are factors that are located by markets. And agriculture happens to be one of the sectors or industries in a market competing with other sectors. If agriculture is to be allocated resources, both human, capital, or even land, so as to scale itself and bring prosperity, then agriculture must transform itself and be competitive. RAD in agriculture must perform better and give better returns than land allocated for golfing, land allocated for tourism, and land allocated for real estate. If agriculture is to attract the skilled human labor, youthful population in Africa, then it must give a fair return and compensate and remunerate those in agriculture better than other sectors. So for me, the way to transform agriculture is to make it a high-value sector, such that it generates enormous value. Growing beans and growing grains alone is not sufficient to transform agriculture. Relying on rain-fed irrigation farming is not going to be sufficient, irrespective of what we do. There are no policies that will skew markets to be able to transform agriculture. It is agriculture that needs to transform itself to be a competitive sector so that it attracts all the factors of production.
What are the factors that determine, particularly for a lot of the people that take loans from your institutions, whether a farmer succeeds or doesn't?
It is the farmers that really focuses on efficiency of production. It's the farmers that really try, even if it is basic mechanization, such that they're using some sort of technology that really increase the efficiency of production. It is the farmers that recognizes that their biggest challenge is not production, is the hazards of weather, and tending towards either drip irrigation, and they are reducing their dependence on rainfall, such that they can produce in a predictable way. And lastly, it's the farmer that respects and recognizes scientific breakthroughs and innovations have a role in increasing productivity. So they use the right certified seeds, and they use the right fertilizers, and they use the right chemicals. Those are the farmers that we are seeing have no challenges in repaying their loans.
From the external perspective, and an external perspective is always helpful, the players involved, and particularly looking at government, private sector, and perhaps development organizations, do you see strong collaboration starting to happen? Are you optimistic?
I'm very optimistic. And I do see a lot of things has changed over the last 6-8 years. It's really fantastic, and so I'm very optimistic about it. But it is also then because here we have to have a very close cooperations between private sectors and the public sector, and the also environment around it. And politicians are genuine skeptical to private sector, because private sector is then looked upon as maximizing their profit without thinking about what the governments are set to control. And then to be too close to private sector, they are afraid then that they are pulled over in a directions which they don't like to. So I think to also, and I see a lot of changes also then in the public sector here in Africa, that one is willing now to work with the private sector, and then one see that without the private sector, we will not be able then to achieve what we want to achieve, and then to make a business for the farmers.
When it comes to policy matters, what are your thoughts on where Africa is in terms of achieving everything we need to achieve? Because we keep saying Africa will feed the world, right? Africa will feed the world, but it won't happen by chance. It must happen by design. So where are we at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of policy, one of the things that we need to do as Africans is to demystify the whole process of policy development. We have left the whole idea of policy development to the elite. We have shipped it out to outsiders who give prescriptions, and we have lacked bold leadership that develops policies bottom up, where the very people who are affected by policies are the first to inform policy development. It's not about education. It's about how do I implement a policy that is win-win. And really the win-wins that we are looking for at the moment is how do we address the fears that Kanayo referred to. Yes, we are proud of our achievements, but for me the biggest scare is undernutrition. We are currently, as Africa, the Museum for Stunted Children. We're the only continent where stunting has not gone down, but is increasing. And why is that so? Because we have made investing in our women a rhetoric. We all know that stunting is because women are giving birth to children that are underweight, that women are going into pregnancy underfed, and that women are being deprived the acreage they need for the poor man's meat, which is the lupins, the crops that they traditionally grew, so that we are healthy. If you look at this generation that's sitting here, we are all round and healthy because we ate what our grandmothers grew. But we've done away with all those foods. And what we are now doing is putting in place policies that promote foods that we don't grow, and we think oil and diamonds will fuel that food. Yet we know agriculture is for nutrition. And I think that's the fundamental thing we need to bring back. Secondly, another fear is climate change. We are not doing enough to bring in climate-smart policies. And for as long as we don't invest in adapting our agriculture to climate change and also building resilience, And to me, what that will bring is recapitalizing our smallholder farmers so that they have the assets for farming, and then we bring them insurance packages because they are dealing with a risky environment. And for as long as we put these technologies on the table and ask them to adopt, they won't because it's risky. So we need policies that are informed by people that are affected by the problems, but more important, make sure research feeds into that policy. They're evidence-based policies, not just rhetoric. Thank you.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Minister Deng, I come to you, and of course, there's so much hope for South Sudan. There have been a lot of challenges, and we're looking to the country to stabilize and move forward. Where is the country right now in terms of agricultural growth and, dare we say, prosperity? Where is South Sudan? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Republic of South Sudan is actually stable, despite of all the challenges that are facing. And in terms of agriculture programs are going ahead. There is a program which is called Zonal Efforts for Agriculture Transformation, ZIT. It is a program which is dealing specifically on cereal crops, root crops, pulses, and oil crops. About 4 crops have been selected, and the farming population specifically, who are the majority in the country, are the one being targeted to look into that. The farm size is increased, the production and productivity per hectare is increased. The farm size increased from 2 fedans to 5 fedans, or 5 hectares. And this is very important, and this is done through the selection of a specific number of the farmers that could also be targeted to produce enough food for themselves, and these are made as a center for learning. This is done as farmer field school or demonstration farms, where the farming population get their learning through agricultural improved management practices in their farms and in their homes. This is a very important project. Another project is also another program which we have within the country is a political commitment. Recently, the President formed a Food Security Council that has been chaired by him himself, and also me as a secretary for the Food Security Council, and all the members of the Council of Ministers are all members of Food Security Council. This is a very big political commitment, and the whole entire institution within the Republic of South Sudan are supporting agriculture. The President himself declared the support of the farming population by providing 1,000 tractors to be given to the farming population where they can increase their farm size from 2 fedans to 5 fedans. And this is targeting about 10 states within the country. Majority of people actually are the farmers and are depending on the farmers through subsistence farming. As we just heal out from the war, we are only 3 years old country, and we are trying our lot best to look into that. Our entire population who are depending on this subsistence farming are targeted. And this is what the government is doing now. Despite the challenges, insecurity is there, but it is under control.
What types of investments are being made in education and human capital development? I think in the case of Ethiopia, there are 3 levels of investments that are being made in that regard. One is in strengthening institutions. We can build the capacity of individuals, but individuals can always walk out the door. So Ethiopia is trying to strengthen the institutions where those individuals work to create the enabling environment for them to do their best work. So institutions such as the research system, or the vocational training centers that train extension workers, those types of institutions. The second is the individuals themselves to be trained. So Ethiopia has trained about 60,000 extension workers. The largest public extension system on a per capita basis in the world exists here in Ethiopia that is providing agronomic information to farmers. And then lastly, it's the policies that enable those individuals to stay within those institutions. So another example is in Ethiopia, the compensation levels of the researchers in the research system have been increased so that we don't have a brain drain going out of the public system. So I think there are indeed some things that government can do to strengthen the human capacity, but it's not just about randomly training individuals.
Thank you very much for that. Geoffrey, your responses and views, please.
I would like to respond into the issue of what the government is doing as far as education is concerned. In Tanzania, we have invested enormously in education, particularly in the primary education. But when it comes to secondary and tertiary education, there's also significant investments. In agriculture specifically, we have revived the diploma training courses, whereby we used to have less than 200 students graduating way back in 2007. And now we have an average of 1,500. And we have moved from having less than 3,500 extension workers, and now we are close to 10,000 extension workers now in the country. At the other levels of degree and also training the research officers, a lot of investment being done there, but also the exposure and also participatory engagements with other participants. On the issues, there's one particular question on how can we sustain success. It is important to know that agricultural development is actually a private enterprise. When you involve the private sector is there to stay. And if you have right policies and good leadership, you have much more chances of sustaining successes. And we can say that the investment that you have seen that are being done by the private sector in Tanzania, particularly in the Sagot area, these ones are actually going on year after year. And now we are perfecting that process. Therefore, it is very, very important. And that comes a question of prioritization.
Right.
Listen to the private sector and listen to the farmers.
I think you really want to understand why we suggest that the forces of the market be relied on to allocate resources if we have to rescale, if we have to create sustainability and to create prosperity in agriculture. You just need to look at what is happening in Addis Ababa. Those of us who have been coming to Addis Ababa always see and get surprised by the construction industry in this place. That is all private resource allocation. But it doesn't mean the government has no role to play. The government in Addis Ababa is providing infrastructure, water, sewerage, electricity, and the rest. And that is what we need to understand. What is the role of government in agriculture? And what is the role of the private sector? For me, the role of the government is to facilitate, is to have to address the bottlenecks, it's to create infrastructure, is to create, to focus on research, is to focus on innovation and capacity building of the small-scale farmers, and also do research and leave the rest to the market forces, and then we'll see prosperity.
Thank you so much. Jørgen, your thoughts, please.
Now, very quickly, I think we see that there is a desperate need for focusing on the initiatives that we have developed and that we have now going on, that we are then developing business for Africans, for Africa, by Africans, and that we are developing the business environment for the smallholder farmers then together with the medium-sized and small ag companies also then, that they have an environment to develop their business in. And we have to show practical and good solutions, and then we have to escalate that and then show that to the rest of the world. But it's also then very important that we have to have individual leaderships also then going forward, making sure that we will have success.
There are very many challenges, Minister, and the question is, what are your specific priorities?
Thank you very much. Our priorities is to invest on agricultural land. Our land is 644,000 kilometers. Only 4% used for agriculture, and 50% arable land. There's enough land that we have enough water. There is also about 39 million heads of cattle under diseases and pests. they need to be free, disease-free, and pest-free. We have also 150 to 300,000 metric tons of fresh fish lying in the said region, in the Nile. It needs to be harvested. These are the potentials we need as a priority in order to boost our economy. Agriculture is the backbone of our national economy, not oil. Oil can be expirable, although there's enough oil, can be exhausted sometimes back. But agriculture is the main backbone of our country. We need investors to come to the Republic of South Sudan. You are welcome.
We know what to do. We're not doing it because success comes and goes with change in leadership in Africa, particularly in agriculture. And why is it so? Because we have not invested in policies that are informed by the people. And here, what I think we need is policy whistleblowers. We need to invest in policy think tanks. Currently, Africa only has 5% of the world's policy think tanks. It means we don't have people who don't understand. We have people who don't understand how policies are made and who don't hold our governments to account. So let's demystify policy development. Let's empower people with knowledge. Let's collect the data that feeds into evidence-based policies, and let's blow the whistle when policies are not being implemented right. Thank you.
Today, Ethiopia is one of the forefront in terms of its investment in agriculture. I think it's over 12%, 13%, surpassing the Maputo Declaration. Its GDP growth rate has been outstanding, most outstanding. But you know, Ethiopia has the second largest floriculture industry in Africa and the fourth in the world. Ethiopia has the largest livestock population in Africa. Ethiopia produces honey. I think it's the largest or second largest producer of honey. It's hides and skins market. The commodity exchange market for agricultural produce. I mean, I can give you the long list. And this has taken place without pumping 1 barrel of oil. It doesn't have it. Or gold or diamond, because they have it, but it's not worth it investing in all of those. It's done all of this. Now you ask yourself why? I said this about some months ago when I was here. Macroeconomic policies, very strong macroeconomic policies. Consistency in its policy agenda. Institutions. A lot of people ask the question, when Prime Minister Meles is not there, we will see what will happen to Ethiopia. He built institutions. The problem, to rejoin what my good friend has just said, our leaders do not build institutions. They become institutions. So when they leave, the institution collapses. So when you have a country that has built institutions, and you have political stability, and you have visionary leadership, and you are not building for yourself for the next election, you are looking down the road. And I ask our leaders, I say, please, ask yourselves, what do you want your country to be like post-2050? If they are honest about it, they will begin to invest. That's all we need.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
What a powerful discussion. Continue to share your views. We always appreciate your feedback. Right now, let's get straight to your thoughts on the issues.
This week, we asked you, how can Africa boost agricultural productivity and increase public investments in the sector? Gardner Stewart says, by urging farmers to form societies and have subsidized farm inputs.
Hi, my name is Mumbi Ndongo and I'm watching the African Leadership Dialogues from Nairobi, Kenya. In response to the question on how Africa can increase productivity, can boost their agricultural productivity, they need to adhere to the Maputo Declaration on Agriculture, which stipulated that African countries needed to allocate at least 10% of national budgetary resources to agriculture in order to help in the acquisition of machinery and fertilizers, which are core to increased productivity.
To join our conversation, go to our G+ page, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Facebook, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Twitter, @AfricaLD, and on WhatsApp, send your video comments to +254 715 816 033.
Time now for Africa's Top 10.
On Africa's Top 10 this week, we feature the top agribusiness companies in Africa. This is according to the Africa Report that chronicles the top 500 companies in Africa's key business sectors. Starting us off at number 10 is Avi Limited in South Africa. Avi's extensive brand portfolio includes more than 53 brands, 33 owned brands, and over 20 international brands under its license. Coming in at number 9 is Sifka in Cote d'Ivoire. Sifka is a leading African agribusiness group involved in the cultivation, processing, and marketing of vegetable oil, natural rubber, and cane sugar. Astro Foods comes in at number 8. Located in South Africa, Astro is an integrated poultry producer whose key activities consist of animal feed premixes, manufacturing of animal feeds, broiler genetics, and the production and sale of day-old chicks. Taking the number 7 slot is Rainbow Chicken in South Africa. Rainbow Chicken is not just a company that produces 4 million birds per week. It creates 4 million memorable meal occasions per week. Slotted in at number 6 is Illovo Sugar. Illovo is Africa's leading sugar producer and a significant manufacturer of downstream products with extensive agricultural and manufacturing operations in 6 African countries, namely Malawi, Mozambique, South Africa, Swaziland, Tanzania, and Zambia. Positioned at number 5 is Tongat Hulet Group, which is an agriculture and agri-processing business focusing on the complementary feedstock from sugarcane and maize. Flour Mills of Nigeria comes in at number 4. Flour Mills has remained at the forefront of wheat milling in Nigeria and has a rated milling capacity of over 8,000 metric tons per day, making it one of the largest single-site mills in the world. At number 3 is Pioneer Food Groups, one of the largest producers and distributors in South Africa of a range of food, beverages, and related products for human and animal consumption. It manufactures wheat and maize products, trades in rice, beans, lentils, and dried vegetables, and has large bakery operations. Coming in at number 2 is Tiger Brands. It is South Africa's largest food company with interest across the continent and over 100 products covering a variety of packaged goods and foodstuffs. And at number 1 this week is Sevitao. It's Algeria's largest food processing industry consisting of various production units such as sugar refinery, vegetable oil, and margarine. And that's Africa's Top 10 this week.
As always, we close the show with words of wisdom, and this one is a Bayombe proverb. The chicken that digs for food will not sleep hungry. Blessings to you, and blessings to Africa.